What is going on, Dodger fans? Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Incline Dodgers podcast. We are presented by Fanduel, Tickpick, and BLEAV. I am Kevin Klein, and if you're a first-time listener, welcome, because I'm sure there's some Kyle Tucker fans that are tuning in to the Incline today. Not going to lie, I did not expect to do a show today. I thought I was just going to be able to chill for another day or two. The Kyle Tucker offseason saga was dragging on. I figured, okay, well, he's probably going to the New York Mets or the Toronto Blue Jays. And then a million notifications hit my phone, and I couldn't believe it. I had to triple, quadruple take and make sure that I was seeing it right, that Kyle Tucker agreed to a contract with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Of course, we're going to dive into that. We'll project what the starting lineup will look like along the way. If you're watching live on YouTube, hit that like button. We're trying to get to 6,000 YouTube subscribers as well, so hit that subscribe button. There will be lots of Kyle Tucker talk for at least the next 2 years. I'm joined by Ryan Garcia, who's been listening to the Incline Dodgers for a number of years now, and it's his debut appearance talking Dodgers, Kyle Tucker. Ryan, welcome to the show. How does the Kyle Tucker news strike you and make you feel?
Wow, well, thanks, Kevin. Hello from Texas, where I'm keeping the Dodger blue fire burning. First off, just happy to be here. As you said, been a fan of the show for a while. I think I found you somewhere around 2020, probably. And what I loved about the podcast was it was just fans talking baseball. It wasn't performative. It wasn't smug. It wasn't full of itself. It was just good baseball talk with fans. So couldn't be happier to make my debut, as you mentioned, on this night of all nights when we're talking Kyle Tucker. To answer your question, wired, absolutely wired. Blindsided was a good word, but wired and excited, and hard to imagine that the Dodgers are just this merciless when it comes to signing free agents and adding talent. But I am here for it. And I think when Freddie Freeman said job in 2026 starts now, I thought that was just maybe hype at the parade. They were clearly serious that a three-peat is the goal, and it's nothing, and that is the only goal. So, let's get into it. Let's talk Kyle Tucker.
Andrew Freeman does it once again, and thank you for the kind words, Ryan. Appreciate your support. Let's start with the contract details, because this is very interesting. 4 years, $240 million guaranteed. But there's a lot of provisions in here worth noting, such as there are opt-outs after year 2 and year 3. So what that tells us right out of the gates is that Kyle Tucker is guaranteed to be wearing a Dodgers uniform for at least 2 seasons. And then he'll decide, depending on his play, I'm sure, whether he wants to go out there and test the markets or pretty much be happy living on a $60 million AAV deal. There are some caveats. That's a $64 million signing bonus. $30 million of this $240 million potentially is deferred. The net present value is about $57 million. So the numbers are just staggering. I never thought, with the exception of Shohei Ohtani, in this current era, the Dodgers would ever throw $60 million a year at any player. I mean, Kyle Tucker is definitely talented, and we're going to dive into all his amazing attributes. But the fact that the Dodgers got into a bidding war with the New York Mets and maybe the Toronto Blue Jays, we've got the Mets numbers, which we'll get into. But yeah, I am stunned. Andrew Freeman wanted his guy, and he got him.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I think this goes back to the Ohtani signing and the deferrals with Ohtani, right? Like, this is part of that. When we signed Shohei Ohtani to that contract, and he took those deferrals, once again, this is why. I don't know if he had just had his share of losing in Anaheim with the Angels, and yeah, I said Anaheim, and just decided he was never going to be in that situation again. But what that flexibility has provided us, we're still reaping the benefits of that, as evidenced by tonight.
When I look at what Kyle Tucker is going to immediately bring defensively to the Dodgers, the first thing I think is Teoscar Hernandez has to be moved to left field. No more Teo in right field. When you add a guy like Kyle Tucker to the mix, who is known for being a right fielder, I think this is one of the biggest goals I had this offseason was getting Teoscar Hernandez out of right field, because I think he's been a huge defensive liability, and they're about to upgrade tremendously with Tucker moving to that right field defensive position. Andy Pages, I guess this means he will probably be the Dodgers center fielder. I'm good with that. Left field, it's Teoscar Hernandez at the moment. The Dodgers outfield is now set. I guess with Mookie moving to the infield, this really did help with Kyle Tucker signing with the Los Angeles Dodgers, because if Mookie Betts was still in right field, then I don't know if they would have paid for Kyle Tucker. But because he's in the infield, problem solved. Tucker is now going to join a staggering lineup with the forces of Ohtani, Betts, Muncy, Smith, Teo, Freeman. There are no holes in this lineup. And so the last thing I'll say, and then I'll pass it back to you, we go from Michael Conforto to Kyle Tucker.
Yeah, I mean, I was telling my wife, we played a man down last year and still won the World Series. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say no disrespect, because it is kind of disrespect, but it is what it is, right? Metrics on Kyle Tucker's defense are mixed, right? Depends on where you look. I think he did win a Gold Glove, but metrics are still a little mixed. Regardless, it's going to be an improvement in the defense, and it's going to be a remarkable improvement in the lineup, which I'm sure we're going to get into shortly. But yeah, defensively in the outfield, I think we're set. I think Teoscar, again, I agree with you, has to go to left. And I know the argument there is he wasn't much better in left than he was in right. Didn't feel that way watching it. It felt like maybe he was a little bit more sure in left. Maybe the balls placed in front of him there. Maybe the angles, or he's more comfortable with the angles there. We'll see. But Pages in center, I'll take all day. I'm eager to see him mature in another year full time. And then Kyle Tucker, solid.
Smash that like button for those tuning in. Yeah, so to point out your observation about the defense, in right field, he did have a -1 defensive run saved. The prior season, though, for the Houston Astros, +7. He's had years where in 2022, +15 defensive runs saved. And if you're more of an outs above average type of guy, he was a net neutral, looks like. Actually, I lied. He was a -2. So yeah, he was a negative defender, but the year before he was a +2. So there was definitely some regression on defense for Kyle Tucker, but maybe it was because it was a contract year for the Cubs. He didn't want to risk injuries. Who knows? I think he's going to be motivated to be a positive defender again. And no matter what, he's an upgrade over Teoscar Hernandez defensively. The bat is just insane. And so that's what we're going to dive into now. What Teoscar Hernandez adds to the Dodgers offensively. Last season for the Chicago Cubs, 136 weighted runs created plus. He is projected, although these metrics could change given that he's going to a new team now, to again repeat and have about a 136 to 140 range, depending on the projection metric, to have a WRC plus yet again. This is a guy that's going to hit anywhere between 25 to 30 home runs, lock it in. He provides some nice power. He's good at driving in runners. He can hit lefties. He can hit righties. The guy is just a safe, and when I mean safe, there's very few holes and weaknesses for a guy like Kyle Tucker. So this is a big-time acquisition.
Yeah, I think what jumps out to me really about his game is we've seen a hitter kind of mature since he began, and we've seen that with an increase on base percentage. We've seen that with plate discipline. I wrote a couple of notes down as I was prepping for the show, and in 2023, 14th in MLB in walks, right? And I think 15th maybe in on-base percentage. 2024, he was injured, so kind of a fluky stat here. In 2025, 11th in MLB in walks, 7th in on-base percentage, and third lowest chase rate in all of baseball last year. Soto was around 16%, and Tucker was at 19%. So incredible plate discipline, high on base percentage. The kind of guy I love in this lineup, taking base for the guys to bring him in, hit and match and bring him in. So exactly the profile I think that we need in the lineup, basically.
Your audio cut out near the end, but I was able to grasp mostly what you said. But yeah, just letting you know. Kyle Tucker splits really good. So, like I said, can hit lefties, can hit righties, and he's an on-base machine. I see people pointing it out in the chat. He has a very good eye. That is true. He can draw a lot of walks. 377 on-base percentage last season. Against lefties, he hit 269 with an 826 OPS. Against righties, he hit 264 with an 849 OPS. Really interesting that at Wrigley Field, he hit only 236 with a 747 OPS. But on the road, 292 hitter, 399 on base percentage, 923 OPS. So clearly did not like hitting in Chicago. The other thing I wanted to point out with Tucker, where is it? Yeah, it's the scoring position was the other thing I wanted to just quickly look at. Yeah, the guy is just consistent. Hit 267 with runners in scoring position, 375 on base, 832 OPS. With runners on in general, 293 hitter, 398 on base percentage, 891 OPS. So the guy has the clutch gene. The guy has had moments in the World Series. He went off against the Philadelphia Phillies in the 2022 game one of that World Series. I think he had 2 home runs in that game and was definitely a big igniting spark plug for the Astros during that run. If you guys have questions for us, feel free to drop questions below in the chat. Make sure to hit that like button, and we will take all your guys' Kyle Tucker questions along the way. But let's quickly shift gears now and talk about what the starting lineup would look like with Kyle Tucker now added to the mix. So I'll pass it over to you, Ryan, first, and I want to hear who would be your top 3 in the batting order right now for the Dodgers.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're seeing all sorts of prognostications on social media of where he might hit. I'll give you two answers. I'll give you what I think will happen, and I'll give you what I would like to see happen. I think he'll probably be third in the lineup because the Dodgers like to do that left-right thing, and I think they're not going to remove Shohei from leadoff. And that high on base percentage almost demands he hits in the top of the lineup. So I think that's what we're most likely going to see. Where I think things could get experimental, and I just wonder at some point if the Dodgers dare to do it, is if they look to get more from Shohei's power and they move Shohei down to the lineup to drive in more runs. That might beg somebody like Kyle Tucker to hit 1 or 2 even. I think he can do that with that on-base percentage. I think he could be a viable leadoff candidate. It might put more men on base for Shohei. But again, I don't think the Dodgers are going to mess with success. I think they like what they have in Shohei at leadoff, so that puts Kyle Tucker most likely at 3. What do you think?
I agree with how I think they're going to lay it out with the top 3, and then I'll go into the full lineup. So, yeah, I think Ohtani remains leadoff. I think they'll start the season at least with Mookie Betts hitting second. Kyle Tucker, you got to bat him third. I think Will Smith will be hitting cleanup. And then they go to the lefty, Freddie Freeman. So he'll be batting down a little bit more than he's accustomed to. But Freddie Freeman will probably be hitting 5th if I had to guess. Teoscar Hernandez, I think they're going to bat him 6th because they'll go lefty with Freeman and then righty with Teo. Muncy, 7th. Lefty, and then Tommy Edman. It's a toss up, but I think they'll go Tommy Edman 8th, and I think they'll go Andy Pages 9th, at least to start for opening day.
Yeah, that makes sense. Provided Edman can play and is healthy, yeah, I think that's where I would land with that.
Some questions, so good ones here. Does Ryan Ward or Alex Call become the odd man out? That's from Tark the Shark. I think Alex Call stays on the roster, at least for now. He can be a platoon bat. He can still come off the bench, start against lefties. I don't know who he would platoon with, though, to be honest, because I don't think Kyle Tucker is a platoon guy. I don't see Pages being a platoon guy, especially because both Teo and Pages are right-handed bats, so they'll be in the lineup against lefties. So Alex Call's playing time will become a lot more limited. But yeah, there is just a really hard path for Ryan Ward to see any meaningful major league at bats for the Dodgers. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets shipped before opening day.
Yeah, I think Ryan Ward, if we were going to see Ryan Ward, we would have seen him in some capacity last season. And the fact that we didn't worries me a little bit on behalf of Ryan Ward and his future with the Dodgers. So probably with you there. I think they trust Call's veteran presence more.
Yep. Greg Osterberg, will the Dodgers trade prospects for more talent? Here's the dilemma. Where are the holes? There are no holes on the Dodgers major league roster at this moment in time. You could say trade prospects for starting pitching. They don't need starting pitching. They have an abundance right now. You could say add to the bullpen. I think the Dodgers bullpen is actually pretty deep and flying under the radar. They added Edwin Diaz. Who are you going to trade to add to the bullpen? I don't think they're going to mess with that either. You could say the Dodgers could add a starter in the position players lineup. There's literally no holes in the Dodgers lineup at this moment in time. So if there are injuries and they need to find a replacement before the trade deadline, those prospects could still get traded hypothetically for Tarek Skubal. I don't think that is completely off the table. There is a scenario where the Dodgers signed Kyle Tucker today on January 15th, and right before the trade deadline, they land Skubal from the Tigers. If Freeman wants the guy, he will get them.
Yeah, I think you hit on it when you said deadline. They're in the driver's seat. They don't have to do a damn thing anymore. They've done it. They've already announced their presence, and I think they'll just wait at the deadline and see if there's anything that happens. Only caveat to that for me would be, and maybe we pay attention to this, if Freddie Freeman isn't healthy at first base, what do they move? What do they shift around to cover that early on? I'm not so sure I know the answer to that right now. And I'm not so sure that there's any indication he will be. But, he said he was going to bow out of the World Baseball Classic. I'm hoping that's just, focusing on the goal at hand and not anything injury related. But something to keep an eye on.
When it comes to the Freddie Freeman injury situation, I think they've got their plug-in guy right now, and that would be the perfect opportunity to give Dalton Rushing at bats. Dalton Rushing, in my opinion, should not be limited to just being a backup catcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I don't think that's what his legacy should entail. I think if there are more opportunities to get Rushing playing time, you find those outlets. And I think if they need to bench, or I should say, if they need to rest Freeman or put him on the IL if he's not healthy, obviously, like you pointed out, he's not playing in the WBC, so we don't know the extent to his injuries. This is the perfect opportunity to showcase Dalton Rushing if they need to trade him down the line, or just get Dalton Rushing incorporated and be a part of the future for the Los Angeles Dodgers. So I'm not too worried right now about replacing Freeman if needed. I have a lot of confidence in Dalton Rushing, and I actually would be happy to see Dalton Rushing play a lot of games in April and May because the Dodgers lineup and roster is so talented. I think they could withstand an injury or two to some of these guys, with the exception of probably Shohei Ohtani. Another interesting thing I wanted to bring up, because it was a talking point kind of all winter long, that the Dodgers were maybe not aggressively, but at least floating the idea out there that Teoscar Hernandez could get traded. And so I think it's important to keep that in mind with the Dodgers signing a guy like Kyle Tucker, that Teoscar Hernandez is not necessarily safe. Do I think they will ultimately ship him out? No. I think they should keep Teoscar Hernandez, but I've been wrong before and I'll be wrong again. And I do think that there are some valid concerns when it comes to Teoscar Hernandez's defense. And it wouldn't shock me if the Dodgers don't want to risk it for a third year in a row and they get a return they like for Teo, and they move off of him. So just floating that out there, that I think that is still in the cards.
That terrifies me, Kevin. I know Teoscar frustrates us with his defense and sometimes a perceived lack of hustle, but we gotta remember the clutch in his bat. I mean, that he has come up with some huge hits in the postseason that have really kind of energized the team or changed the momentum in our favor. I think losing him would be terrible. So hopefully he's in the cards for the future.
Yeah, I agree. Especially that point that Teo's a gamer, great clubhouse guy, shows up in October, has had a huge number of big moments the last 2 seasons for the Dodgers, regular season and postseason. But I will just throw that out there because Andrew Friedman is always looking for opportunities. And if I think there are some desperate teams out there, and the Toronto Blue Jays, to be honest, I could see them now reaching out to the Dodgers for Teoscar because they need a bat. And they're talking about it right now on Twitter and Facebook and all that from the Nightingales of the world and Ken Rosenthal that Bo Bichette's not a lock to return to Toronto. In fact, they're still not the favorites to re-sign him. There's a lot of momentum with him potentially going to the Philadelphia Phillies. You can't discount the Yankees in that mix either, although I still think they're going to get something done with Bellinger. But if they don't for whatever reason, they're going to ask about Bo Bichette's price. So it'll be interesting to see how Toronto responds. But they need a bat, in my opinion. This is a hot take, getting a little off subject, but if they lose Bo Bichette to another team this offseason, they lost the offseason altogether for me because you struck out on Kyle Tucker, which was truly the guy you needed, or at least bring back Bo Bichette, who was one of your best hitters, not only in the regular season, he's their second best hitter behind Vladdy, but he also had that huge Game 7 home run for them off Ohtani. And so the guy has huge playoff moments. You lose Bichette, I think you lost the offseason. You added Cease, cool. You overpaid for him, great pitcher. You added Okamoto. They're saying he's a utility guy. And they added a couple guys in the bullpen. I don't think that's a great offseason if you lose Bichette.
Yeah, don't look at social media right now if you're a Blue Jays fan. I mean, they're in full meltdown mode, big time. Dodgers have ruined baseball again. Bring on the lockout, blah, 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 cry me a river. Yeah, don't know, don't care. We're here for another title. And again, once again, Andrew Friedman is a take no prisoners type of guy who moves in silence and just patiently waits and then strikes.
I want to pull up what the Dodgers odds are now on Fanduel. I'm very curious to see if we've got new MLB odds, but that might take a couple minutes. But if anyone has questions for us, feel free to drop those below in the chat. So as I pull that up,
that one thing I wanted to talk about too about Tucker was I thought it was funny how over the course of his off season or his free market or free agent market, the narrative developed around him that he might not be a clubhouse guy. The teams didn't necessarily want him. I thought that was kind of unfair. I remember reading an article just this past year in Baseball Digest, pretty respectable publication, where Joe Espada, the Houston Astros manager, had commented that he was a great clubhouse guy. I think I wrote it because I wanted to get it right. It said that he has a way of bringing people together with his sense of humor. A former teammate of his, Jake Meyer, said that he was one of the funnier guys in the clubhouse. They ran a fantasy football league together. So it's just interesting that narrative kind of unfairly developed around him when, by all indications, his teammates, his former managers, former teammates like the guy. So I think the Dodgers do their due diligence when they bring personalities into the clubhouse. They want to make sure those mesh. Obviously, it's a star-studded locker room, and I think Tucker's going to be that stuff.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers learned, especially from the Trevor Bauer experience, that they're going to do a very deep dive on these players, especially when they're committing huge salaries like they did for Kyle Tucker. And I agree with that. I think the reputation that he was maybe viewed as doesn't take baseball full seriousness, maybe phones it in at times. I don't know if that was just some executives floating it out there to try to depress his market value. I'm not really sure. Leading up to that news that a few people threw there, or not news, but maybe like accusations that a few people made about Kyle Tucker, I never really had that impression about him. I always viewed him as a top tier outfielder. And I remember when he played for the Team USA in the WBC a few years ago, I thought he was a great addition, and I've always admired his work ethic and think he's a talented baseball player. But this is what's interesting. So I checked the odds earlier today on FanDuel. I didn't even think we were signing Kyle Tucker. I just was curious. And the Dodgers 2026 regular season wins total was 99.5. Now that they've added Kyle Tucker, FanDuel has moved their win totals projection that you can bet to 104.5. So if you want to bet the over on 104.5 wins for the Dodgers, minus 105. If you want to take the under on 104.5 wins for the Dodgers, minus 115. To win the World Series, they're a plus 220. I know I read those odds a few weeks ago. I can't remember off the top of my head what they were, but the next closest team is the New York Yankees, plus 1,000. Mariners, plus 1,300. Blue Jays fell to 6. They're in a tie with the Braves, plus 1,400. So the Dodgers are just massive juggernauts right now. And I can't remember a time ever where the Dodgers were 104.5. I think maybe it was 103.5 a couple years ago, but 104.5 is huge.
Yeah, just stay healthy, right? That's the key. Just stay healthy. If they're healthy, don't get me wrong. I still probably would lean on the under because I think they're going to move lineups around and shuffle some things. And again, their goal is not to win 110 games in the regular season. Their goal is to get to October healthy. So it'll be interesting to see how they piece that together. But nobody's better at it than the Dodgers and Dave Roberts with how they manage a pitching staff. I think the lessons have been learned already. They've seen how to do it, and they're going to shoot the same type of approaches.
For sure. So Jim Duquette, who's been kind of on top of this Kyle Tucker stuff, he reported per his sources that the Mets offer was 4 years, $220 million. And so the Dodgers came out ahead by $20 million. I'm sure we'll get these details with time. I'm kind of curious what the Dodgers' initial offer was for Kyle Tucker and then how they countered one another and what the back and forth was. Obviously, there was some heavy negotiating taking place, and that's why the fronts were quiet for a couple days. We didn't hear anything when it came to the Dodgers and in terms of what they had offered Kyle Tucker. The initial reports was that they were noticeably below a $50 million AAV, and that we had all this Mets gossip out there that they were offering the $50 million AAV, which did happen to be true. But what I will say is what usually goes in the Dodgers' favor versus other teams, especially a sloppy team like the New York Mets, when you're throwing all your business out there and making it public, and then the Dodgers are just scaringly quiet, that's not good news for the other 29 teams, because that means the Dodgers, Friedman, Gomes, and company, they're in deep negotiations and they're about to make something happen. This happened a couple years ago with Ohtani on a plane to Toronto, and the Dodgers were quiet in that matter for a few days. And once again, we steal a player that Toronto wanted, and this time it's Kyle Tucker.
Yeah, as we said, the Dodgers move in silence. I think the closest, most outright statement we got all offseason was Andrew Friedman kind of wryly saying that they had their eyes on another position player, possibly a guy that could maybe, do both, a couple of things, both sides of the ball. Now we know he meant defense and offense, if we didn't already. And that's it. And then I thought when he said that was odd, because that was more forthright than he usually is, and that he probably was close to somebody. But for all I know, that could have been, Harrison Bader guys. Little did I think we would land Kyle Tucker. You pair this with Edwin Diaz, and just, I'm still stunned. It's a shocking night that the Dodgers came out of nowhere and did this and kind of gobbled up Kyle Tucker, and once again a broken baseball.
Yeah, Will Salmon, that covers the New York Mets, also reported that in addition to the $220 million offer that the Mets threw at Kyle Tucker, there were no deferrals, and there was a $75 million signing bonus with also opt-outs after years 2 and year 3. I mean, the money is so close with these two teams, but I feel like where the Dodgers have the edge over the New York Mets, and take all offense to any Mets fan that is listening, your organization is a mess. You sign tons of players to huge contracts year after year. You miss the playoffs. You choke. You embarrass yourselves. You don't make the right moves or personnel decisions time after time. And when they signed Juan Soto to all that money last season and then missed the playoffs, that was once again the Mets being the Mets. This time, it's pretty obvious where Kyle Tucker is going to go. And it sounds like, just based off everything you can read between the lines, Kyle Tucker wanted to be a Los Angeles Dodger. He wanted to have an opportunity to win some World Series. And now he has an opportunity to three-peat. And if we're getting really crazy here, four-peat with the Los Angeles Dodgers. So we always have the edge because we've got Shohei Ohtani, we've got Mookie Betts, we've got all the allure, we've got the titles. What do the Mets have to offer? They're the second fiddle to the New York Yankees.
Yeah, you pair the chaos of the Mets with, let's look at those opt-outs again in Tucker's contract. Players come to the Dodgers and they get better. The Dodgers have a way of bringing out the best in players, hitters and pitchers. So if you're Kyle Tucker and you want to test the market and try for that long-term big money contract in 2 years, I think you have a much better chance of going to the Dodgers, having a couple of really nice seasons with what the Dodgers can do to unlock or improve your game, than if you were going to the New York Mets, where I just don't think that the Mets organization is anywhere near the caliber of the Dodgers in terms of bringing out the best in a player. So it makes financial sense for Kyle Tucker, too, to take the money now, come here, get better, and then test the market after a couple of big seasons.
A lot of static. Yagi, should Tucker bat behind Ohtani? He's probably the second best hitter in the Dodgers lineup in 2026. So we talked about this earlier. So to quickly recap, I would have Kyle Tucker probably batting third just to start the season for the Dodgers. I think you go lefty, righty, lefty. So I think they'll go Ohtani 1, Betts 2nd, Kyle Tucker 3rd. Gives Kyle Tucker a lot of opportunities to drive in both those guys. So part of the theme for going into this upcoming season is, and I think this will do Mookie Betts a lot of good, he'll be sandwiched in between two elite hitters. These pitchers, they're not going to have a break at all in the Dodgers lineup. They had some breaks last season when they've got to face Michael Conforto, Tommy Edman, Andy Pages on the road. And so this was unfortunate for Ohtani because he never had anyone to drive in for a good duration of the season. Well, he'll probably still be batting leadoff, but now I have to anticipate that with this Dodgers lineup being much deeper, you've got potentially Max Muncy hitting 7th. I'm expecting a bounce back from Tommy Edman batting 8th or 9th. And I think Andy Pages is going to take even a bigger leap forward, and he could potentially be a 30 home run hitter for the Dodgers next season. So it's a really, really deep lineup. And for the rest of the league out there, if you're an opposing pitcher, this is freaking terrifying. Let's see what else we've got. Yes, Gavin Lux was traded. Thank you, Justin Yamas, for pointing that out. I was so distracted with all the Kyle Tucker news. I didn't even have my phone near me when that trade went down. I don't even know the details, to be honest. But Gavin Lux did get traded. So he got traded to Tampa Bay. Sucks for him, I guess.
Yeah, I'll give it up for Gavin Lux. Let's root for him in Tampa. He'll be there with Ryan Pepio, right? So they can have lunch together.
Let's see, Justin Yamas question. LA at Toronto, April 6th through the 8th. Who gets louder boos, Kyle Tucker or Shohei Ohtani? That's actually a really good question. I have to imagine Kyle Tucker is going to hear the brunt of those boos, especially when we get more details, because I have not seen them yet. What the Blue Jays offered Kyle Tucker in terms of his services. I'm actually surprised that hasn't been leaked yet. I don't have a clue. I don't know if it was a 10-year contract offer. I don't know if they did the short-term high AAV either. But I would say right now, Kyle Tucker gets the loudest boos. I don't know if he'll be in the lineup or not. Probably one of those games. But Miguel Rojas, I have to imagine, would get the second loudest boos because he's the one that ended their season. So, yeah, Kyle Tucker 1, Rojas 2. Let's see. So I want to take your guys' questions. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. react to Kyle Tucker, ask us anything. So we're here to dive into more of this Kyle Tucker stuff. We're just waiting for the press conference at this point. Edwin Diaz, Kyle Tucker. I'll ask you this, Ryan. Where does this rank in terms of the last 3 off seasons? What would you rank the off season going into 24, the off season going into 25, and now this off season, if you had to order them?
Yeah, I mean, Otani, Yamamoto are going to be one, right? Like there's no getting around that. This one though feels like it's behind that one. It's taking second place there. This one just feels really aggressive. That they're not afraid to go out and make some moves and pay the big dollars a little bit. I guess I won't say it's irresponsible. I'll say that there's maybe more cash after 2 World Series and they've got the taste for winning. But to go out and you get the best closer on the market and you get the best hitter on the market, yeah, aggression wise, I would put this 2 after the Otani Yamamoto season.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. I would still rank this one third, crazily enough, because when I look back to last offseason, there were definitely some moves that didn't pan out. For one, Tanner Scott was the right move at the time. He just wasn't good. Kirby Yates was the right move at the time. He just wasn't good. But to me, signing Blake Snell is still more important than signing Kyle Tucker, because the Dodgers had such a huge deficit in their starting pitching that they needed to go out there and acquire a guy like Blake Snell that can give them big time innings, has that clutch factor, and can deliver in October. And I think that was just a huge difference maker in our entire World Series run last season. Forget the World Series outings, because that's just recency bias. The dude was nails in the wild card round, the NLDS, the NLCS. He was unhittable and was lights out and was just keeping all those teams in order. And so even just panning out and taking a snapshot between the last 2 years, if there's one player I want, it's still Blake Snell.
Yeah, that's the more important one. These are more indulgent because if they didn't get either of these guys, I would still feel like they had a great chance to win. So I agree, more important on Snell, more indulgent, but I'm more impressed with this because after winning 2 World Series, they didn't have to do a damn thing. They could have rested on their laurels, and they didn't have to go out and chase a third one, but they are chasing a third one with everything they've got, from the front office to the players. So let's see how it pans out this year, and we may revisit it.
I'll bite Justin because I see that question. Well, what about the offseason of 2019 heading into the 2020 season? That's a really good point, because I think this counts as part of the Dodgers dynasty. I will say it, the Dodgers are in a dynasty right now, and 2020 was the beginning of that dynasty. That offseason is a strong number 2 for me, no doubt about it. Mookie Betts was such a game-changing acquisition. That was the missing piece. That was the missing link we needed to be over the top. And getting Mookie Betts was at that time, if there was one baseball player I could pluck from any organization, it was Mookie Betts. And Andrew Friedman had the same thought process as me, and he landed Mookie Betts in an all-time fleece. Not only that, but they signed some pretty key relievers. They had a Brusdar Gratterall, for example. He was pretty instrumental in that run. They added Blake Treinen. That was massive as well. The dude was lights out in the postseason. Definitely a number 2, no doubt about it. Nothing's ever going to top signing Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. It's never going to come close again. But yeah, adding Mookie Betts and all those other guys I mentioned, and I'm probably blanking on other things. No doubt about it. That's a number 2.
Yeah, there's some certain inflection points, I think, for the Dodgers in the last 10 years, or even beyond 10 years, where certain players have come in and they've kind of changed the culture a little bit. For one of those to me was Adrian Gonzalez when we got him, and him kind of changing the professionalism of the team and the way hitters went about their business. They seem to change a little bit offensively when Adrian Gonzalez got here. Another one would be Justin Turner and just what he did for the clubhouse. And then Mookie Betts, to your point, that's kind of where it all really started, this whole championship run. I have a baseball autograph by Mookie Betts, and he wrote under it, LA, it's showtime. he wasn't lying. That was back in 2020. He came in, he gave that speech. He knew what he was brought in for. They win it their first year. He's dynamic that first year on the bases and hitting. Absolutely where this entire chapter this dynasty started.
Yep, absolutely. Another point that I wanted to bring up, and it was top of mind for me, and I completely spaced on it till right now. Not only are the Blue Jays fans pissed, not only are Mets fans pissed, not only are Dodgers haters fans pissed, but I have to imagine they are absolutely furious in Houston right now because one of their own in Kyle Tucker, and this is good payback because they traded him. It wasn't like Kyle Tucker willingly left the Houston Astros. They made a choice to trade him a year ago to the Chicago Cubs. And now Kyle Tucker gets sweet vengeance. It all goes full circle. He was a fan favorite. This is a guy that was drafted and developed a top prospect in the Houston Astros farm system. And they're not going to be able to root for him now because he's going to the Los Angeles Dodgers. For whatever reason, Houston Astro fans hate the Dodgers, even though they cheated against us. I'm never going to understand that logic. Instead of being empathetic and throwing out an apology, they act like they're the victims, even though they cheated in the World Series. And you live in Texas, so you probably hear both sides of it. I never understood it.
No, it's disgusting. Yeah, it is. I don't know how they've made themselves the victims. It is disgusting. I go to the store and I make sure I turn the Astro hats the other way so I don't have to see that logo. Yeah, it's great. They didn't want him. That's what it comes down to. They didn't want him. They weren't interested in trying to sign him. They cashed out for some players with player control and some prospects. Great. Guess what? Chicago had a chance to do something. Arguably, they didn't really make an offer for him. So, pay the guy if you want him. We did. I'm a Dodgers fan talking, so a little biased, definitely spoiled. But Astros had a chance, and it will be sweet, sweet vengeance to go up against them with their guy that, King Tuck, signs everywhere. Can't wait for it. Here for it. Chicken soup for the soul.
From Adolf Hipster, the question is, what WRC plus do you expect from Kyle Tucker in 2026? Good question. Right now, the projections are about 136 to 140, so in line with what he's done. I would say that's probably about right. I have to see what he looks like in spring training, to be honest, and what this lineup's actually going to look like before I start to throw out some predictions. But just off the top of my head, lock him in. He'll hit somewhere between 275 to 290. On base will be probably 360 to 370. OPS 850 to 900 range. He'll hit close to 30 home runs. I think he'll have probably about 100 to 110 RBIs. So he'll have big numbers.
Yeah, give me that 360 on base all day. I think I saw stats somewhere where he would have had, 6 more home runs last year in Dodger Stadium. So something to keep in mind. Maybe we'll see a little bit of a boost to his numbers at home. But yeah, beyond that, I'm with you on the projections. I think somewhere around there, 290 would be great. But 280, 275 definitely plays.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if we have any other questions. We'll probably round out the show in the last. We'll get down to the final stretch here, so make sure to hit that like button, get your questions in. But yeah, Kyle Tucker coming to the Dodgers. I don't know if we have any other news that has trickled in the last 10 to 15 minutes, but my Lord. So here's a fun off the top of the head thing I'll just throw out to everybody. So this is the biggest surprise I think I've ever had in my entire Dodgers fanhood. So I'm ranking this one, and then I'll let you answer that question. Is this your number one, or give us who your biggest surprise ever would be? Someone that you didn't expect them to sign.
For me, this one came out of nowhere. I'm not sure I expected them to sign Shohei when we got all the Toronto buzz on the plane to Toronto. It just seemed like we were going to lose out on that one at the last minute, and we didn't. So in a way, that was a pretty big surprise. But we were in the dance for it. Right? This one, I didn't think we were. I thought it was going to be the Mets in Toronto. So it's up there. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of another one. Yeah, this one the most blindsided by.
Yeah, this one is number one, and it's not even close. Number two, I'm a little hesitant to put it at a firm number two, but it's softly there right now. It honestly might be Edwin Diaz. Like, I didn't know they were gonna pay up to get Edwin Diaz. I honestly thought he was going to go back to the New York Mets, but then when more information started to come out, I was like, okay, it makes sense. But I didn't think they were going to offer Edwin Diaz a 3-year, $69 million contract, if I'm being quite transparent. That one is up there for certain. Trades is a different story. Like, yeah, Manny Ramirez, obviously that came out of nowhere. I saw his name thrown around in the chat. Yeah, I mean, especially when you didn't have social media and all that back then, that one really came out of left field, no pun intended. So the whole Mannywood, obviously when they traded for, and you pointed it out earlier, the blockbuster Adrian Gonzalez trade, that was a blindside as well. Didn't expect that haul back of Agon, Josh Beckett, Nick Punto, Carl Crawford. That was a huge blindside move. But in terms of free agent signings, Yamamoto kind of was a surprise, I guess, because just the New York Yankees really wanted him. He was going to get pushed up to $300 million. I didn't know if we were going to go that high, but we did. Tanner Scott was definitely surprised by that one a little bit too. Didn't think they were going to pay him the bag like they did. But yeah, a lot of these have come in the last few years where I was
I'll throw one out that unfortunately didn't work out, but at the time I thought I was really surprised by it. Kirby Yates, especially after we signed Tanner Scott. Didn't think we'd go out and get Kirby Yates at all. Was elated when we did based on his performance from the previous year and thought we would absolutely have a lockdown pin with those two. The Kirby Yates one, I thought we were done after Tanner Scott. So pretty surprised by that one and still really upset that didn't work out. Had high hopes for Kirby Yates.
Yeah.
Saw him get crushed in Arlington by Adolis Garcia for a walk-off. Not fun. Not a fun time.
Yeah, that was definitely a rough year for me and my bullpen agenda because I was a huge Tanner Scott guy and he blew. And then huge Kirby Yates guy, and he also blew chunks. And hopefully this is redemption because I'm a huge Edwin Diaz guy as well. So
it's either redemption or you're the curse.
Ouch. All right. I think we did a lot here spontaneously. Ryan, thank you so much for joining. Is there anything else you want to add or anything Dodgers related or baseball you want to throw out there while you're on this show?
No, just happy to be here, and thank you for your patience and graciousness and accommodating my podcast debut on the Incline. I've been a big fan, as I mentioned, for a long time, and happy to talk Kyle Tucker with you tonight. I know you've got some future plans. You posted on social media about some WBC stuff, so that seems really exciting. Eager to kind of follow that if you want to talk a little bit about that. But I know I'm going to try to go to a few games when it comes to Houston here and check it out. I think Team USA is going to be playing a couple of rounds here, but super excited for that. I think the vibes there are really, really cool, and it'll be fun to dig into that a little bit more.
That reminds me about bringing up Clayton Kershaw, so I'm going to do that in a second. That was something I was planning to talk about on my next show, and then of course we get blindsided with Kyle Tucker news. So yeah, I'm going to make an announcement on that in a second. But worth pointing out, the Dodgers 40-man roster is full. They're going to have to make a move. So looking at this Dodgers roster right now, I would think that to add an outfielder, they would have to get rid of an outfielder. And so my guess is that it's going to come down to Michael Ciani or Ryan Ward. One of those two, I think, are going to be gone within the next couple of days to make room for Kyle Tucker, especially a guy like Siani. Why is he on the 40-man roster? Why would he be in the opening day lineup or opening day roster to begin with? He can't hit. He's just a glove guy. Now they've got Kyle Tucker. So, yeah, Siani, you might be out the door. So you pointed out World Baseball Classic. So 2 things on that. I am so hyped. This is what I wanted 3 years ago. I don't care if it's an injury risk back then, and now it doesn't even matter. Clayton Kershaw is pitching for the Team USA in the WBC. I am so stoked. This is a dream come true. I am going to be a true patriot. I am rooting for Team USA. I want Team Japan knocked out early for some selfish reasons. Less playing time for Otani and Yamamoto. Get them over back to Camelback Ranch. Team USA all the way. So I'm going to make a quick announcement on that front. So once the World Baseball Classic starts, this podcast is going to be, we'll still cover the Dodgers, don't worry, but we're going to do intense, in-depth coverage of the World Baseball Classic. We're going to cover a ton of the games and do this thing, baby.
Yeah, I love it. And to all the people out there, why would Kershaw do this? He wanted to do it 3 or 4 years ago at the last time, and for whatever reasons, I think the insurance didn't work out, and the Dodgers probably didn't want him doing that, so he didn't get a chance to. He's accomplished everything he's got to accomplish in the major leagues. Why not go out and try to represent your country, win a World Baseball Classic championship, add that to your resume? There's nothing to lose here for him at all. Go live his dream. He has earned the right to do that. So I take offense to anybody on social media who is objecting. Why would he tarnish his legacy, or he's going to get taken deep? Who cares? Let the man do it. That's what he's wanted to do. He's earned the right to do it. Let's go out and root like hell for him.
Yeah. Final question of the night from Yongi. Any possibility Teoscar Hernandez gets traded and they sign Harrison Bader? So the first part, yes, I think there is a possibility Teoscar Hernandez does get traded. I do not think, though, that they would then sign another free agent. I think they would, if they move Teo, maybe they just get someone back in a trade to play the other outfielder spot. But I don't think they would trade him and then sign another player, because especially with a 40-man roster already full, you're already filling it up. So I think we're done in terms of signing players. I think they're going to get Kike Hernandez back, and that's the last position player they add. But thank you guys so much for listening, whether you're on the audios, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, you name it, or if you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment below. Let us drop what your starting 9 will be for the Dodgers into 2026. But thank you guys so much. Thank you to Fanduel. Thank you to BLEAV. Thank you to Tickpick.